My last video, I showed how I redid this, upgraded it. I made put a grease fitting in there so I can grease this now. I don't cut it to anything close enough that I'm going to hit this because this sticks out past your chute. So you have to be careful with that. But around here, I don't have anything that's going to catch on it or anything. I don't cut that close. And the brass bushing I made in there, I cut it on my lathe. So one thing about cutting brass, and especially iron is even worse. You can see I got my 3 jaw chuck tore down to clean. I have to clean these parts, but out here I have some parts cleaned. I just got to blow them off with air, and then I can lube them and that. I was using grease, and I said I'm not going to use grease anymore because it seems like the cutting, when you cut especially brass or something, it gets in them jaws and then you can hardly work them. I just don't like it. And you can see over here I have a pan of gasoline, and if you look down in the bottom, looks like I was panning for gold. All that come out of them jaws, all that brass. That brass is so fine, it just comes out of there. And like I said, iron is actually worse. So if you cut anything like that, you should take the jaws apart and clean them and put them back on. And when I get this all the parts cleaned and ready to put back together, I'm going to show what I'm going to use to lube it. I thought about it, and I thought, I have something that I don't think that the dust will collect to like grease. So when I get that far, I'll show it. So I have my 3 jaws all cleaned. Everything's clean, dried, blown off. Every bit of dirt's off of it. I'm ready to put it back together. And I said I'd always put grease on this in here. I'm going to stay away from grease, I think, because I think the grease is getting too much dirt, especially when I cut brass. So I thought oil, maybe try some oil. I have Mobil 1. I even have some number 200 weight oil. I got a little jar of it where I used to work. They used it, and I got it for the Harley chain because it really sticks. But I thought it's going to be about the same. So I'm thinking, what oil would be good for these gears and work? And then it hit me. What is made for gears and stuff? Automatic transmission fluid. I thought, there we go. Now, on my lathe, I had made this, seen it on YouTube. I had made one of these cans, they're spill proof. And what it is I took a little can like this, and I had to sacrifice the stuff. It was the cheapest one I could find in a store, grocery store. I think it had tuna in it. It was a tuna can. I cut the top out, cleaned it all out, and I put this piece of PVC pipe down in there. It goes clear to the bottom, but there's 2 notches cut on the sides, so the oil will go in there into the can. The only trouble about this is to brush it on there. Anytime you brush anything on the lathe, you get cuttings on here, they go back in the can. This can gets contaminated. So, I mean, this is great. I even put magnets on the bottom to hold it on the lathe. Works great. I don't like it. I'm getting too much dirt in there, so I'm going to have to dump the oil out, clean it out, and go again every so often. I said, got to be a better way. Well, if you remember on one of my YouTube things, I said about these bottles from Harbor Freight. There you go. I got a brand new acid brush, and you can take this. Now I can drop it on where I want, brush it in. These you can actually clean, you know, get a little bit of solvent and clean them. I do that. I save as much as I can. But like, I'm ready to put this back together. I can drop a couple drops down inside, and I think transmission oil would work perfect. Brush it around in there. I can even drop it on my brush, so my oil always stays clean. And then I mark it because I made one of these with Mobil 1 oil that I use on the lathe. But I'm thinking about I cleaned my ways and everything, and I oiled them the other night. I didn't think of this. But I'm going to start and use some of this transmission oil and see how it works. Then I can leave that off. And then I can start putting this back together. But it makes sense. Transmission oil, it's made for gears and stuff. And all these parts have to go back in and they have to be lubed, which is no big deal. Let me see. So let me get this all back together, and then I'll pick it up from there. So I've got this all back together. I haven't put the backing plate on yet. But in here, when I took it apart, this is numbered. It's number 1, that's number 2 and 3, the jaws, because the jaws are numbered and they go in certain ones. But what I did was, when I went to take this apart, I put a little punch mark there. This was back when I first got the lathe. I got a lot of oil running out of it, but that's good. It ain't gonna hurt nothing, that transmission oil. And I put a little mark right here on it, like that. So I want it back exactly the way I took it apart. Then this plate in here, I put a number 1. So I have everything, and then there's a piece inside there that slips down in. I marked it too, so that I know they all go back that way. Now, what I've done is, when they make this, they have this piece right here that fits in here. Let me get that lined up like that. And there was no play or nothing in it. But when I put an indicator on this and checked it, it was always running out. So what I did was, I took this piece and put it in my 4 jaws, and I cut just a little bit off of this edge here, very little, just enough to where when it's together, you can see it's got a little bit of play. I can move it. So what I do is, when I go to put this back together, I put these bolts in, and I don't want to put any Loctite or anything on them, because I'm going to snug them up good in the lathe. But what I do is, I just barely snug them down. Now, when it's on the lathe, it's hard to get to these bolts. So I have another Allen key like this. I sacrificed. I cut it off so it's short. I cut it off about there so I can get it back there and work with these. And then what I do is, when I'm all done with it, it has threads in here to go in the lathe. Then I put an indicator right here, or right out here. I think it was back here. And then what I do is, I can tap this. There's bin marks on it. That wasn't me, because I use brass. And I just bump it. And I true it up as best I can. I can usually get it within 1 or 2 thousandths. Then I tighten these real tight and check it again. That way, this is running the best it can run. And let me go back to number 1. That's number 1 there. And these are marked inside here. That's number 1. So I'll put a little oil on it. And I'm going to try this oil for a while and see, because it goes down in there pretty good, and I can always put some down in here whenever I need it. Okay, there's number 1. So what I like to do is unscrew this, then push in on it, and just when it catches, right there, nope, nope, okay, it's caught. Now it's just caught. I go to number 2, same thing with this, get a little bit of oil on it, and I'll let this set on paper towel for a while, because it's going to some of that oil is going to run out. But I'd rather have it running out than, you know, nothing on. And like I said, I don't want to use, now I can look down in there and see when that's going to come around and catch that. It's right there, so I back it up a hair. Now the second one. Okay, so those 2 are caught. Now the third one. I can tell this transmission oil is kind of thin. Probably could have used a heavier oil. But maybe it won't hold the grease as much. So there's a scroll in there I can see that comes around, catches the, I think I went past it. Gotta get back here and find it. There it is. Now to make sure, nope, I didn't catch it. Should have caught it that time. Nope, don't have it right. They don't all three close at the same spot. So I got to go back and do it again. Okay, where's number one again? That's two. Okay, here's number one. Get it caught. See, I can see it in there. Right there it starts. Okay, take it up to number two. It's just starting there, back it up a hair. Get it caught. There, now it's coming over to three. Number three doesn't want to catch. I think I got it that time. There we go. All three of them tightened in. They're tight right together. So I'll let this set for a while, put it on a lathe and true it up, and that's it. The last thing I did is I put the jaws back on. I put paper towel around it, taped it on. You could use gum bands too. And then what I do is turn it on. That'll spin the excess oil out. Once that's done, I just leave it go until the next time I need it. I'll just leave that paper towel on there. But that's another job done.